So when exactly were the good old days for audio? I think that's probably has factor in your age would sort of shift that time frame of when the good old days were. Now, in some ways, these are the good old days right now. If you're thinking about sound quality, in my opinion, I think it's never been better than it is now in every price category. So I think these are the good old days if you're just solely talking about sound quality. But having said that, I think the 50s and the 60s, those were kind of before my time as let's say as an audiophile, so I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I can say I've told the story before that when I was a little kid, my parents had a jukebox in the basement, and I used to lie on the floor in front of the jukebox and just let that sound kind of wash over me and vibrate my brain. And I think it affected me. I think it's still affecting me. So in that sense, those were the good old days for audio for me, because that was how it all started. And I bought my first audio system when I was in high school, which was this Corvette. Corvettes was a department store, and I bought their branded amplifier. It was called XAM, was their audio brand. I bought XAM amplifier and XAM speakers, and I was happier than a pig in crap. I mean, I just thought that system, to hear my Beatles and Stones and Doors records through that thing, just yes, that was emotionally a high point, because I went from nothing to hearing my own music sound that way was a really big deal. And through the 70s, let's say the earlier 70s, I was improving my speakers, I was getting better turntables and cartridges. I wouldn't say it was all that big a deal looking back on it, but step by step I was getting better. Now the thing about this period, let's say up through 1980, I think audio was simpler. It was a simpler business. The companies, big companies like Marantz and certainly Sony, but Fisher and stuff, they actually made stuff. They an Onkyo receiver was made by Onkyo. The engineers designed everything in an Onkyo receiver, the amplifier and the tuner, etc., etc. Those were made by and designed by Onkyo. And over time, that was less and less so. Today's Onkyo receiver isn't really designed by Onkyo. It just it's a box full of chips inside of it. I'm not just picking on Onkyo. It's probably true for Yamaha, maybe not, but certainly NAD. Most mainstream companies, they don't really design stuff anymore. They just sort of assemble it into a thing, a receiver, for example. So it's different. But in the olden days, 50s, 60s, and well into the 70s, audio companies took real pride in their products and worked really hard to make, like Onkyo and Sansui were famous for their tuners. They were like, we have to make the best FM tuners on the planet. And of course, Macintosh's tuners were a really big deal. And they took real pride in that. And that's not really true anymore, certainly in mainstream audio. It's a mere shadow of its former self. But in the late 70s, that's when the high-end audio thing really starts to take off, with companies like Audio Research and Conrad Johnson and Magnapan and I guess Infinity at that point. Things were changing rapidly in the late 70s into the, let's say, mid or even late 80s. It was the golden age for high-end audio. And the other thing is, this was still pre-internet times, right? So people weren't distracted by all these other things the way they are now. So a lot of people who weren't even audiophiles just had, pretty decent audio systems, and that was true for a big portion of the population who liked music had some kind of decent audio system. And then there were the audiophiles, who were the obsessives, who were getting into Mark Levinson and Snell and Spectral and all these high-end companies that were pushing the state-of-the-art forward just massively from year to year to year. Everything was exploding at that point. So that may have been a golden age too. definitely was a golden age. And then when the CD came out in 1983, that kind of put a wrench in the works, because high-end companies couldn't really make their own transports. They couldn't make laser mechanisms and things like that. And digital technology was that they had to use chips made by other people. So they made high-end CD players that use basically a Sony transporter, a Philips transport, and then put tubes in the output or something to say they did something to make it sound better. So it really kind of slowed things down. And then, of course, home theater started happening in the late 80s and into the 90s, and they made some sort of lame attempts to get into home theater and compete. But again, they didn't have the engineering chops to compete in that thing. So basically the bubble was burst. That all the things that were pushing everything forward in high-end audio and in mainstream audio were fading away. It just wasn't the same. But I think we're in a more mature period for, let's say, high-end audio, and I think high-end audio is doing really well in terms of making great sounding products. And I think in affordable, let's say, affordable audiophile products like ELAC and Magnapan, who makes some very affordable speakers, and Klipsch, etc. And of course, Shit Audio. There's a lot of great affordable audio on the market right now. So from where I started the golden age for audio, I think we're in one right now. It's not as much fun. It doesn't have a romantic glow around it like the earlier periods do. But I don't know, give it another 20 years and I'll look back in the 20 teens and I'll say, oh, that was such a great time. Because it is a great time. So lucky for you and me, we're in this time where great audio exists at every price range. Let's hear your opinions in the comments section below, and I think I'm done. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show, comes up daily. If you like it, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, share it, do all that social media stuff, and check out my playlists. When you're on the homepage for this channel, you'll see playlists for music reviews and headphone reviews and speaker reviews and rants and all sorts of stuff. And of course, the ever popular Audiophiliac for a Day. See you next time. Bye-bye.